So today, for the very first time, we've got a first look at some actual F1 23 gameplay, including onboard shots from a recent deep dive they just dropped today. And visually, it all actually looks really, really good and sounds good from the handling improvements we're going to be getting with this new game. So in this video, we're going to go bit by bit through the deep dive video and kind of dissect and discuss the things that have been talked about with the improvements to F1 23. But before we do that, I just want to show you the onboard F1 23 gameplay. These are all the onboard moments of F1 23 gameplay that we've seen in this deep dive. And one thing I'll say straight off the bat is that different color grading that was talked about in the reveal of the game. We weren't sure if it's just going to be for cinematics or replays or in Breaking Point 2. It seems like that color grading is actually there in the actual onboard gameplay. So that it's slightly kind of, the yellows are boosted a bit more and it kind of feels a bit more grounded to what we see with the TV and film versions of F1, just the way they color grade it for TV, also in Drive to Survive, and just generally color grading that you see in TV and film. You can see the brand new heads-up display with the towers on the left and right now, very much mimicking F1 TV, which I really rate. Just kind of creates that more kind of immersive feeling like you're watching F1 TV basically whilst you're playing. New heads-up display on the bottom with the rev counter all different now. I'm not 100% sure if personally I like it better than what we had before or not. It's more curved to try and fit the cutout basically of the cockpit when you're playing in T-Pod cam. I mean, personally for me, I always shove that heads-up display on the right-hand side because as a creator, I always want to just try and display the car as much as I can for aesthetics for the videos. But for those of you that want to keep it in the middle, I guess it will be a welcomed improvement to be a bit more streamlined in the way they've laid out all the icons. And generally, I would say from the step from F1 2021 to F1 22, visually, this looks like a lot more different than F1 22. I think 22 very much looked like 2021 just with the new cars, whereas now clearly there is a bit of a different vibe with how the game looks.
F1 23 delivers a universal leap forward in gameplay with innovation to the vehicle physics engine for improvements to handling, low-speed traction and overall drivability. As a result, you'll feel more predictable and authentic vehicle behaviour on track in three key areas: acceleration, braking and rotation. To achieve this, the development team first updated the physics calculations for the slip of tyres and how this interacts with the inertia of the car itself.
So more predictable handling. That's exactly the kind of thing we needed off the back of F1 22, where it was very unpredictable, especially in traction zones, the acceleration of the car, but even also under braking and the rotation. Rotation meaning the way the car actually goes round the corner, the feeling of rotating from left to right or right to left. In F1 22, there was so much innate understeer in the cars, so hopefully these F1 23 cars are a lot more pointier and actually responsive to what you're doing. And then the big thing for me personally, and I think a lot of people, is that acceleration though, the traction. The fact we're getting wheel spin in like 5th gear sometimes on F1 22 was just ridiculous. So it seems like, with the mention of the way the tyre slip is actually on the road, that is very promising that that's not going to be a factor now in F1 23. The next bit of the deep dive goes into taking real life feedback from the teams, which you always have to take with a bit of pinch of salt because we've heard that before. That kind of, buzzword of real feedback from real F1 drivers. We had that in F1 2020 into 2021 into 22, and well, clearly sometimes it hasn't actually paid off in the right way. So take this next bit with a pinch of salt.
Real F1 team feedback has been incorporated into F1 23 gameplay.
When the guys at Codemasters and the team came approaching me to say, look, we've tweaked the new game, give it a go, see what you feel, things you like, things you don't like. Felt like there's been quite a big change with it.
The balance between aerodynamic grip from the cars and mechanical grip from the tyres was fine-tuned to get it much closer to real life, in turn enhancing the authenticity of every drive.
Now, if that actual feedback has actually genuinely changed the handling to allow better mechanical grip of the tyres, that's massive, because you really got, not just in F1 22, but the last couple of F1 games, the F1 games in general from Cody's, there has been a lack of feeling of the tyre on the road in comparison to other racing games out there, and then also the aerodynamic performance, especially when you're getting into upgrading the car per se, and you're trying to get more downforce on the car in my team crib. mode, for example, but even online when you're behind other cars, or just, you know, chucking it in and hoping that it's going to stick because of the aero setup you've got, sometimes left a lot to be desired. So if there's actually some genuinely good input and that's gone towards a better direction, then I'm all for it.
The way the engine delivers torque has been refined, making it more progressive relative to your gear and throttle input, which enriches all of these other changes to make throttle response more realistic.
Engine torque being tweaked to be more progressive, that is 100% the opposite of what it was in F1 22. It very much seemed like sometimes, even in 4th or 5th gear, you'd be, you know, thinking, oh, I can go flat out, and the torque just is still spiking away, and you're going to spin out, get a wheel spin, literally spin completely off the circuit sometimes. In some cases, it was a little bit insane. So that's promising. I hope that's actually going to come into fruition, that, you know, every gear you're going up, you're going to feel that confidence on the throttle pedal, rather than, I think a lot of us just kind of tentatively, you know, just dabbing the throttle very lightly like a feather, because you know it's not as progressive as it should be.
The underfloor of the cars was also improved to make interactions with curbs and rumble strips more true to life. You'll really feel all of this new handling detail through a force feedback steering wheel.
Changes to the underfloor of the car, changing how the car reacts to curbs. This one I'm a little less convinced by, because I still feel you're going to get that innate kind of, you know, just awkwardness over some curbs. You know, tracks, also the curbs themselves are the problem, not necessarily the car in the way they react to the curbs. It's more so the curbs, the way they've been designed on the circuit, are just like death curbs basically. So this one I'm the most skeptical of how it's going to react over it, and seeing the little onboard shots, I still think there's going to be certain curbs that are just disgusting. But to be fair, in real life there are literal curbs in real life that drivers avoid because you just can't really bother to go over them. You're going to lose too much time basically. And then there's a really nice comparison shot of F1 23 and 22.
Really feel all of this new handling detail through a force feedback steering wheel, but controller drivers,
you can't really glean too much from it, because the driver that is doing both the F1 22 and 23, it's not going full commitment through that left-hander in 5th gear. But what I'm seeing is the car is moving about a lot less when it gets towards that apex, i.e. maybe now the aero grip and mechanical grip of the tyre is actually pulling the car into the corner where you're wanting to go in a right way, and it's still not unsettled like it always is on F1 22. And then also that, to be fair, might be the reaction of the car now onto the curb, onto the road, being a lot more settled and actually planted, like we see time and time again with F1 cars in real life. Like when the driver is going in, obviously there are moments where you go over the limit and the car snaps on you, i.e. Leclerc at Miami, you know, with some wind involved as well. But, you know, most of the time, you know, these cars are engineered to try and be planted and smooth as they go through these fast corners.
but controller drivers, listen up. Introducing Precision Drive Controller technology in F1 23, a transformative controller input tech to enable a more precise and rewarding driver experience on standard controllers.
So this is a big one for controller players. So basically, for the way I see it is, basically all the settings that us wheel users have are now available for controller, because these settings that are shown on screen, they're all the settings that anyone with a wheel already has for steering wheel. So that's nice to see. There's going to be a bit more customization for controller players of how they want, you know, the throttle input, brake, etc. So, you know, if you've not got the possibility of upgrading to a steering wheel, you have to stay on a controller. This will hopefully maybe make your experience better by, you know, if you're so heavy-handed with your throttle input, you can try and change that dead zone. So that's a positive step in the right direction in terms of when it comes to more casual players or players who are just unable to have a steering wheel, which is a high cost to entry barrier. You know, even the cheapest wheels are still pretty expensive, so it's never a bad thing to see better controller technology coming in for the F1 game.
Whether your driving style is smooth or aggressive, Precision Drive will elevate confidence for controller players, especially during those intense wheel-to-wheel racing moments that make F1 so thrilling.
So in this next snippet, we can see that the new changes to Austria are going to be present in the game. In real life, they've altered them to add a few extra corners after turn 1 for other motorsport categories. So that is now present in Austria in F1 23, which is great because I didn't actually think they were going to bother to do that potentially and maybe leave it alone. So maybe there's hope for other circuits getting some key updates, you know, fingers crossed for something like an Rouge update finally at Spa, potentially, because if they've bothered to go and change Austria in this manner, then hopefully other circuits have also followed suit.
Building on the existing safety car feature, red flags are now in the game in F1 23. The system now monitors track conditions and determines whether to trigger a virtual safety car, a full safety car, or a red flag. The sensitivity of red flags can be adjusted, similar to the safety car feature. A variety of things can trigger a red flag, like debris on track, cars stopping on track, extreme wet conditions, and more.
So the first look at how the red flags are going to look with a heads-up display. It's going to come up nice and bold and big, and you're going to get reset, and you're going to be able to play around with the strategy post the red flag. So not only will you actually have the race stopped, and unlike when we last had red flags in the F1 game, you just basically went back to 5 red lights straight away, basically after a little splash screen. You can now actually pause for a moment and look at your strategy, look at the tyres you've got available, see how many laps are left, and then plan accordingly also with the weather as well. I also got to say, in the gameplay here from Imola, when we go to red flags due to I guess really wet conditions, the wet weather gameplay and the graphics actually look great. A step up further from what we had in F1 22, which was already probably one of the better parts of F1 22 when it came to graphical updates or improvements to the weather system. It was definitely a lot better than we had in 2021, and so it's good to see they're continuing that course of just making the wet look more insanely pretty in a kind of, you know, weird, scary way of how much spray there is and the reflections on the ground as well from all the puddles as well.
AI cars can initiate red flags as a result of racing incidents, but they're more likely during a multiplayer event when users are racing wheel to wheel. The new red flag feature also adds a new strategy element to race day. Under a red flag, you're allowed to adjust your race strategy, fit new tyres, and repair some damage, just like in real F1 races.
And it's very cool to hear that red flags can get triggered by cars stopping, crashes, debris, and also severe wet weather. So you could get in a race just monsoon rain, and it's going to red flag the race, pause the race for a moment until the weather conditions get better.
2 brand new circuits arrive in F1 23, Las Vegas and Losail. The highly anticipated Las Vegas circuit has been built from the ground up in F1 23, and the game will be the first chance for fans and F1 drivers themselves to experience the track ahead of the race. In-game, the track will be as accurate as possible. It was designed from thousands of reference photos from around Las Vegas. A huge amount of photogrammetry data was acquired from the Vegas Strip for ultimate authenticity.
Now, this is our first look at Las Vegas, and I can't deny it looks insane. I mean, the location, you know, would lend itself to look insane, of course. The Las Vegas Strip just has so many, like, artifacts, and, you know, with the lights coming down and being a nighttime race, you know, all those reflections and everything like that is always going to make it look very, very pretty. But, yeah, I mean, it's looking incredible. I'm definitely impressed by the fact they're just showing us, you know, some onboard bits of the cars going around this circuit. Probably the earliest they've ever done something like this in terms of the cycle of when they've revealed the game from the first announcement reveal into there. So they've definitely showed up a little bit more compared to all those random teasers we had beforehand.
For Losail, official FOM computer-aided design combined with ArcGIS World Atlas aerial imagery, height data, and photogrammetry of the circuit were integrated to create the most accurate representation of the new track.
And when it comes to Qatar, compared to Las Vegas, where they just had to use reference photos, Qatar, they've gone into more detail. They've actually specified they're using FOM data, photographic data from the actual geometry and everything like that, and a load of other technologies that I can't even fathom and process in my mind to try and make it as accurate as possible with Qatar, which is great to see the newer circuits getting in these games when it's not like a to-be-made circuit like Las Vegas, where the circuit itself is not even there in real life yet. But these other new circuits, circuits that are actually already there in the real world. They're going out there and getting the right data to get the proportions right. It's just the fact that I really hope we get these kind of updates and this level of technology eventually for the older legacy circuits that we, fan favorites from Europe, basically, because those definitely need a bit of an update. But yeah, overall from that deep dive, I really, really like the look of the game visually, and in terms of what we heard and the info about the handling, all sounds promising. Of course, it's, we have to wait and see, and there is going to be a creators hands-on in a couple of weeks' time, at the end of May, and that's when I can really be a proper judge of, how different it feels to F1 22. So you guys are going to have to wait for that, but do get subscribed if you aren't around here for that, because as soon as F1 23 gameplay is possible from myself, me actually recording it myself, then it will be dropped on this channel as soon as possible. So get subscribed for that. But if you have enjoyed this video, kind of dissecting the deep dive, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Do you like the look of F1 23 from what we've seen so far? I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.